I'd like to start with doing my webcast statement. This council meeting will be webcast, and I remind all those present that their words and actions will be broadcast to a wider audience, and certain conduct is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Should any person not wish to be recorded, I advise that they should leave the meeting room prior to making any statements. Any defamatory statements made are not the position of council and remain an individual's opinion, and council will accept no responsibility for any defamatory statements, and all liability will remain with the person making those remarks. But now call on Councillor Sutherland to acknowledgement to country, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to say Yama Re Gomoroi, Walla Bagniani, Unu Galwa, Ylambo Mari, Maro Mara, Mari Gal, Dilia Yambali, Gunamaris Gaingal Gomra Yamlanginda, Winalanginda, Winangalawa. And that's the language spoken by our families and our communities here in Tamworth. Mr Mayor, acknowledging the country that we're on, which is the land of the Gomeroi people, and making sure that we pay respects to our elders, both past and present, who have cared and still care for this country. And extending on that acknowledgement, Mr Mayor, I also want to acknowledge that this week is NAIDOC Week, and a national celebration with the theme of Keep the Fire Burning, Black, Loud and Proud. And the theme is so important because it recognises legacy. And here at local council, I think we understand the legacy of local government, knowing, as a regional council, 2004, city and parish prior to that, and municipal councils even prior to that. As Gomeroi people, we inherit a legacy that's thousands of generations old. And those fires have been lit for us, and we have a responsibility of keeping those fires alive. And Mr Mayor, every time we use language, every time we share stories, we're putting wood on those fires, making sure that our young people can see the way forward and our community can be stronger. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. I'd like to ask all those that wish to stand for the meeting prayer. Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to vouchsafe Thy blessing upon the Council. Direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of and the glory on the true welfare of the people, of the Regional Council and Australia. Amen. Councillors, the meeting's declared open, and we'll move to the first item, apologies. We do have a number of apologies tonight, as you can see. We have apologies from Brooke Southwell, Bede Burke, we have apologies from Steve Mears, and Phil Betts. And apologies from Phil Betts. So could I have somebody move that we accept those apologies, please? All those in favour of accepting? Aye. Carried. Moving on to item 2, community consultation. We have one speaker in community consultation who's registered, and I'd like to ask Daniel Gillette, if he's in the audience, Daniel, to come to the podium and make you and speak on, tell me what you want to speak about and then speak to it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wish to speak to business item 10.4, which is the recommendation that Council accept the Tamworth Regional Creative Communities Plan for 2024 to 2029. I believe that you should support this plan, and I want to initially thank the councillors, particularly Sutherland, Councillor Coates, Councillor Southwell, who worked so hard on this plan, and all the staff, Peter, Kay, Bridget, who are here tonight, and others who've done an incredible amount of work to make sure that we keep this plan in action. Not every council in New South Wales has a creative and cultural plan anymore, and it's really refreshing to see that this council has the opportunity to renew interest in that plan tonight. As Councillor Sutherland said, while welcoming us onto country, we're a city that's renowned for telling stories, and we're a city that has been telling stories in one way or another here for hundreds of years. We aren't known as the city that has Boundary Rock up there because it's there. We're known because of the stories that are told about it. We're not known as the City of Light because we had the first electric street lighting. All of those lights are gone. It's only that we continue to tell those stories that Tamworth is so renowned among other cities in regional New South Wales. And we are known for our music, of course, we're known for our textile art, but without telling the stories through well-planned and consultative infrastructure development, we won't be able to get that message outside of our fair city. This plan creates opportunities to attract new people to Tamworth. And for the first time, this plan includes its own section on attracting a multicultural aspect to our city. I think that is reason enough that it should be commended to you tonight. We're going to attract people who are desperately needed to fill jobs in Tamworth. We're going to attract people who want to come here to be part of our community and to work hard to make our community better. That will grow the esteem of our town. It fits in line with Blueprint 100, and it will make us the envy of regional New South Wales. Now, we know when we're trying to attract people to Tamworth, we can't compete with Sydney, Newcastle and Wollongong, and frankly, we should stop trying. We don't have a beach. As much as I love Turai Harbour, it's never going to attract everybody the same way that Bondi can. But what we can do is compete with places like Wagga Wagga, with places like Albury, with places like Dubbo. The way we do that is by investing in our culture, by investing in critical infrastructure, not the least of which should be the Creative Arts and Performing Precinct, not the least of which should be a keeping place for our Kamilaroi people to celebrate their culture. We need to invest in these things, and this plan, which has been so well worked on, is an excellent way to start and to guide the investment that Council needs to make for the next 5 years and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Councillors, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is minutes, item 3 minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have somebody move that they have true and correct record? Councillor Cates, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Any questions on those minutes? Can I put that as being a true and correct record? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move from there on to item 4, disclosure of interest. Do we have any disclosures of interest tonight? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item, where is it? 10.1. I'd like to register a less than significant non-pecuniary interest as I'm a volunteer of the Tamworth Power Station Museum, and I will remain in the chamber.
Thank you. Any further disclosures? We'll move from there straight on to Merrill Minute. There is no Merrill Minute. Item 6, notice of motion. There is no notice of motion. We'll move to item 7, 7.1. The Council Heritage Working Group minutes. Move Councillor Tickle, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Tickle, you wish to speak to that?
I'll reserve the right.
You reserve your right. Anybody wish to speak against what's reported in those minutes? Anyone wish to make comment? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to the discussion regarding the future of the Regent Cinema building, I'm more than pleased that we're going to write to the owner of that building, and hopefully in discussions with them they'll appreciate that it's a significant asset, aesthetically displeasing at the moment, something and anything that they may do to enhance its appearance and obviously protect its both facade and its internal walls and features will be appreciated by this council and the community. Community has long indicated that it's certainly in a sorry condition of demise, and I'm sure that if they can get the message that they need to do something more than what they're doing, I'm sure that the people of our region will appreciate it.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move from there on to item 7.2. Objection in relation to section 82 Local Government Act on behalf of Majestic Lifestyle. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Cates, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Wish to speak to that, Councillor Cates?
Mr Mayor, just to make a comment in regards to this. This has actually been going on for quite some time now, and I believe that it's probably time to put it to bed in some form or other. And I think that, sometimes we need to be flexible in the way that we do things, and sometimes we have to be guided by what is for the better good. So for that reason, I'll be supporting this particular item.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to like everything that's obviously gone before this outcome, are council staff convinced that they'll abide by the relevant approvals and authorisations that they need to progress their proposal. And look, I think the concern I have is that I'd hate to think that we're looking at that like the Parramatta multi-storey development that nobody has any recourse after things have gone bad. And so we're confident that the buildings will be structurally sound. So once this company is constructed and the warranty period's over, people will be confident that they're residing in buildings that are structurally sound.
Councillor Rod, I had similar concerns and I've satisfied myself, but I might refer to Gina, who may refer to Sam to make some comments on that.
Mr Mayor, through you, I was just going to make a general comment that this applicant, this developer, has presented some challenges to date, as councillors are aware of, and we certainly would hope that the action we've taken to date to have the developer meet the requirements has, I hope, if I could say, they've taken that on board and that we won't have any further issues. But one never knows, and Councillor Roddy, you know that we can't be sure, we can never be sure, and that's why we have a means at our disposal to take action if we need to. But yes, Mr Mayor, Sam or Nicole might want to speak on that matter.
Sam, could I just maybe suggest that in answering Councillor Ronda's question, if you could just mention the three dwellings that are and the way they're going to be treated as opposed to the others, please?
Absolutely, Mr Mayor. Obviously we're all aware of the experience we've had so far with this development, but we feel like this is a bit of a line in the sand. The applicant has produced the information that we need to get to this outcome, so that's why we have a report in front of you tonight. We've looked at things like the infrastructure that needed to be done before this report went up. Documentation around building on site. It's quite common with these types of developments to build on site in a manufactured homes estate. You look up and down the coast, you see them everywhere. So it's not something that's outside the norm. It's just a matter of addressing what we have in front of us, and going forward, we potentially have routine inspections. We get compliance plates and other certification each time a house is built. So we get to look at the plans, the documentation provided for each individual house going forward. So we're quite confident that there is a process that can be followed from today onwards. In relation to the three dwellings, yes, we can look at that in a different light and look at things like building information certificates and request certification on what's already been built out there. And so there's another pathway that can be dealt with those particular three houses. So, is that okay? Is there anything else?
Councillor Rod, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Cade?
Yeah, if I could just make one more comment, I think that just acknowledging Councillor Rodder, this is a risk we take with any development that we actually approve, and I think we need to really acknowledge that. But perhaps with something like this, and maybe I'm asking for something that can't happen, but if councillors could be kept up to date with the checks that are being carried out there, so we actually feel that this particular case it is being followed closely, and that we are aware if there are any concerns, rather than just waiting until something comes back and it becomes large. Now, I'm not sure if that's possible, but if we could actually receive that, that would certainly make me happy with what we're approving.
Councillor Cade, rather than have that as part of the recommendation, would you be happy for that to be just a procedural matter?
I'm happy for that, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further comments, councillors?
Close the debate, Mr Mayor.
Oh, you've closed the debate, of course you have. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 8.1. I'll move in a second, please. Move Councillor Sutherland, second Councillor Pickett. Councillor Sutherland, you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr Mayor, just to say that I'm in support of the recommendation. I think it provides residents with more flexibility in the way that they access these vouchers, and also provide an effective use of council's resources to administer it. Just to note that I think that there will need to be some level of a communication strategy or some kind of comms plan, deliberately making sure that people are aware of the changes and making sure that we remove any kind of barriers that limit people's access to these new vouchers, especially if we're moving into more of a digital online space.
Further comments, councillor? Oh, anyone wish to speak again? Further comments? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll move on to 8.2. I'll move in the seconder, please. Move councillor Tickle, seconded councillor Coates. Councillor Tickle, do you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against that? Any further comments on that recommendation? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
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 Carried. Councillor, we'll move from there to item 9. There is no governance and strategy matters in the agenda tonight, so we'll move straight to item 10, community services. And 10.1, that is Tamworth Region Museum and Archive Strategy. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move councillor Sutherland, second councillor Coates. You wish to speak with that, councillor Sutherland?
Definitely. Mr Mayor, I think that across the Tamworth region we have a number of facilities that as community members said in the start of the meeting, that share our story. 10 facilities across the region that Tamworth Regional Council that we support, making sure that we have the infrastructure, the support and the volunteers to be able to do so. I think having a deliberate plan and strategy to ensure that happens in the future is vital for us as a council, making sure that we are supporting all of the community organisations who are taking that responsibility to make sure that all of those artefacts, all of those assets, all of those things that hold our story can be well maintained, well preserved and can last the test of time. So, Mr Mayor, I'm in full support of this plan.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Lauder, then councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I noticed in this report there was many references to volunteers throughout our museums and gallery. And following feedback from many volunteers, I believe we've lost numerous volunteers over the years due to frustration about the way they feel they are treated or appreciated, the slow pace of action, or simply cheesed off because they don't believe they are valued and taken for granted. And so I think, in that space we've got a lot of work to do. These views are also echoed by other volunteers. So I'm a volunteer of the Tamworth Power Station Museum, and I know that there's a number of old fellas there that, and I'm an old fella too, but there's a lot of old fellas there that feel that way, including Ian Hobbs, and I know the late Ron Greer also felt that way as well. These views were also echoed by other volunteers, such as those at the Tamworth Film and Sound Archive, that currently has had no long-term home since the demise of Ray Walsh House. They obviously have the care, control and management of priceless images and film currently stored in poorly climate-controlled area of the community centre. Local volunteers are proud of their region's heritage, and all they want is for council to value it as much as they do. The other problem I see is a feeling amongst many volunteers about a lack of appreciation for the artefacts being donated by locals, and there is concern about these rare and irreplaceable items being thrown out on the say-so of an expensive consultant contracted to trawl through donated items. There was a strategic plan for the Power Station Museum, and volunteers could barely see any of the benchmarks being met in the last strategic plan, and now it's being replaced by a new strategic plan. It had been. On page 14, there is a reference to creating a level playing field and goal to invest in our collection of stories and collaborating for a sustainable future. I did wonder, what does that mean, considering all museums are different, and why do we say buzzwords in council reports and policies that have little meaning or significance to our volunteers, venues or our region? There isn't a level playing field at some venues because they are all different, and some you have to pay to enter while some you do not. On page 16, the references to a major deaccessioning program, and particular reference to, again, the Tamworth Power Station Museum. Of course, that museum has large artefacts, and it's why we agreed to purchase the building next to the museum to enable the expansion, and in an own goal the big corrugated iron shed at the rear of the property had its lease extended out to the 2030s. Meanwhile, we're spending currently more than $10,000 on storage elsewhere. As mentioned, there is concern amongst volunteers that the people employed to deaccession items have little concern for the irreplaceable artefacts donated to the museum, and to question, does the accessioning of collections include the gallery collection? And I would certainly think not, but the Power Station Museum is one of our most historically important museums. Power Station, as page 18 talks about the challenges of recruiting volunteers, but I'll refer to my previous comments regarding some of those reasons. Page 20 references a visitor experience centre, but as mentioned in the media by the Mayor recently, it's a long way off. I know there is also an antiquated payment system and at venues and stock control system that needs to be addressed. And while I support these recommendations for consultation, I cannot support the unfettered deaccessioning of donated items.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Councillor Cade.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think there's a couple of points that I'd like to make, and I have been to a number of these organisations of these particular, meetings of these organisations, and generally, although I acknowledge that there are some issues that they have, I've never had a lot presented to me that are of great concern. And I think we need to remember that councillors are not generally part of these committees or organisations, and if we need a different way of them communicating to us that they're not happy with how things are going, is that something we need to consider for the future? And I think the other thing I would just ask Councillor Rodder is that I very much acknowledge what you've said about some of the issues and the concerns, but I would really also like to know whether or not we have any suggestions that we could address these concerns as well. So it's for me, I think these particular organisations, the museums and the collections, are an amazing record of our history, and it helps to inform what we're doing for the future. And we really do acknowledge, and perhaps we don't say it often enough, that the volunteers do an amazing job. And I know I personally, when I go there, I'm quite in awe of what they do, given the resources that they have. So, you know, if we're feeling that we're not doing the right job, do we need to actually look at how we're doing that so that we can improve that experience for the volunteers? But I think this is about the actual strategy, and I actually commend the strategy. I think Bridget has done a really good job. If there are other parts that we need to add to it for the future, then maybe that is part of some of the discussions that councillors need to have going forward.
Bit of a comment, councillors. Councillor Tickle.
Just in addition, I'd like to thank the staff that have contributed to this, and our volunteers and everyone else who has had input. When we've had workshops on this, we have all acknowledged that we have so much stuff and that we do have to start culling. We can't possibly and reasonably expect every single little item that's donated to be kept. For a while we had an ugly shed up on Armadale Road that was full of old ovens, old sewing machines, you name it, they were there. And they had to be either disposed of or moved somewhere else. So it's just like running a house. You have to have a cut-off somewhere. So, and no one wants to see anything thrown out that has historical significance. However, we don't need 10 items of the one thing. So there is a lot of work to be done in that regard, and I'm quite sure we won't be throwing out any rare and historical items if they're one. However, we don't need multiples of the same thing, and unfortunately that has built up over the time. But everyone does an amazing job on this. I've only ever had very positive meetings with the volunteers and visitors at the museums, and they do a fantastic job, and a lot of the cataloguing is done by the volunteers. But we've made enormous progress with our museums, and it's something for us all to be proud of.
Further comments? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move on to item 10.2. 10.2. Tamworth Regional Public Arts Strategy. Can I have a mover and a second? To move councillor Sutherland, seconded councillor Coates. Councillor Sutherland, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor, and I'm glad that Bridget Guthrie is in the room because definitely deserves a lot of praise for a number of the reports that's up tonight. I think that this new strategy is a great extension of the public arts strategy that it supersedes. One thing that I'm really glad to see in this strategy is an investment in a public art fund, really committing to the maintenance of public art. Now, I think increasing the maintenance of all of these beautiful items and artworks right across our region, although it is coming at a slight increased cost for the maintenance, I think it is overwhelmingly topped off with the visitor economy. The amount of visitors that these artworks bring right across our region attract people to towns right across to see beautiful artworks, and I think that's what builds community, and I think that this strategy does a great job in articulating that in strategic moves moving forward. And again, I'd like to congratulate Bridget on pulling that together.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I do agree that it's actually important to have a strategy and a fund to maintain public art. You know, let's guide it. I'm not sure what the agenda is for the Sky Gazer. It's starting to look a bit weathered, whether that's the intention, but whether that actually requires some maintenance, I'm not sure. But there's also, I think down Peel Street, the Federation display on the corner of Peel and Brisbane Street, out the front of the former Trelaws there. I think there was some tiles missing, and I know they're bespoke tiles, and it's very difficult to replace them. But I haven't seen it recently and whether it's actually been repaired. But look, obviously a fund like this would be important to actually rectify things like that. Whether this is a matter arising, I notice at the end of Boulevard Place in the Heights Hillview, there is an Aboriginal art, and it's actually in really poor condition, and it needs. It's on the within the concrete, and it really needs fixing. So obviously this sort of fund would go towards the maintenance of that, but it's a sort of one of those urgent things. And opposite that are more Sky Gazer type figures, so they probably need a bit of love as well. So I'm pleased that we're actually investing in the maintenance of some of our public art.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. If you've got a couple of particular ones, I think highlight them to us in an email and we'll send that off to that directorate. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. 10.3, proposed sponsorship request. Mover and a seconder. Councillors Sutherland. Can you speak to that, Councillor Sutherland?
Yeah, well, I feel like with a small council, we're speaking quite a bit, but it's only rightfully so because the items that are in the paper tonight are really around community building, majority of the case, and I don't want to open up old wounds and old conversations, but supporting this recommendation is what seems to be an economical no-brainer. $30,000 over 3 years, $10,000 a year to support an event that will significantly boost our local economy. Now, bringing in $2 million estimate, is a massive return. Now, not only that, building up economy, making sure that businesses can thrive and prosper, but also allowing Olympic pathways. Within that sport, I think is a great investment in community. And I'm so glad that we're able to make a decision in recent weeks that puts council in a position to be able to keep investing in community. Because in the long-term overview of these things, it's a really big decision to make, but $30,000 for an estimated $2 million economical benefit is a great decision, and I will support this recommendation.
Anyone wish to speak against? Any further comments? Councillors, you've all would have been received in the receipt of a letter from Martin Sky, Vice President of the North and North West Show Jumping Club, and there's some very good points he makes in there, so I think that helps us with our decision making tonight, some of that information that he's provided with us. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 10.4, that's Regional Creative Communities Plan. Another plan, good plan, mover and a seconder. Moved councillor Tickle, seconded councillor Coates. Councillor Tickle, you wish to speak to that? Anyone wish to speak against? Further comments?
This one.
Councillor
Thank you.
Coates.
I just want to recognise the amount of work that actually went into building this plan. I think there was an awful lot, right from the community survey all the way through to the workshops that Arts Northwest did. And I think there was a lot of community involvement and a lot of community input. So I actually just want to say thank you to everyone that was involved. Thank you to Kay and your staff and Lauren from Arts Northwest, because I think this actually does help us gives us a plan for the future. Thank you.
Further comments? Councillor Conroy.
Yeah, but to add into Councillor Coates' remark, this plan has been completely supported by extensive community consultation. And as Councillor Coates mentioned, the work of TRC staff and Arts Northwest with Lauren Mackley saw 13, I think, workshops delivered right across the region, and heard some really strong voices from communities outside of Tamworth that talked around the need to invest in communities, provide resources, then step back. Step back and let those communities be self-determinant around what those events look like, and remove the barriers that can be put up that make it more difficult for our communities to have an identity, to build on that identity and really to be celebrated within it. As Daniel Gillette said at the start of the meeting, I think that the previous recommendations, and this plan in particular, is a strong investment in community. It's a strong investment in culture, which is such a massive luxury to be able to have as a council, and not to have too much tongue in cheek, but we're looking to build the livability of a community, and people aren't moving to towns because they have smoother roads. Sorry, Rashi. People move to communities because of the sense of belonging, because of the identity that people feel and connected to a place. This creative plan allows for that to happen, making sure that we are in a position to be able to invest in our community as much as we can. And I would like to really point out too, Mr Mayor, that it's great to see an ongoing commitment throughout these plans to look at what an Aboriginal cultural centre would look like here in town. And to see that has been supported throughout all the community consultation, throughout the surveys, I think is a great note to be able to see, especially in this report that's been put up in NAIDOC week. I think it's really fitting. Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, before I ask for a motion to move into closed council, I'll ask the General Manager, is there anybody who might request that any of the items in closed council be heard in open council?
No, Mr.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to see any of the items in closed council considered in open council, and a reason? There not being the case, I'll ask for a recommendation to go into closed council. Councillor Coates, second to Councillor Tickle. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
We are now moving into closed council. Thank you, all those in the public gallery, for attending. councillor. Just while that's happening, a number of councils are now doing that.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
sometimes we do it in the general part, too, the open
They
part,
do it a lot
but
of it
there
in the
are a
general
lot of
part.
like motions.
Well, particularly if we've got things to adopt, like strategies and that.
Yeah.
No, you don't
Could
need
have
to.
done 4 of them in a row on those.
Yeah.
You know,
Back on here.
Back and open, can you, review?
Nobody out there?
Yeah, they're just loitering, but
Okay.
Full report, Mr General Manager?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this report for the closed session of the ordinary council meeting held on the 9th of July 2024. In closed council this evening, you considered 4 items, and for each of those 4 items, you adopted the recommendation as per the business paper.
Thank you. I'll call for a notice to accept. Councillor Coates, seconded Councillor Rodder. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.